In this episode, I walk you through the bolt pattern and reinstallation of a water pump for your small block Ford on your OPEC era passenger car. Welcome to Straight Six Van. I'm Grant Tommy, helping you build your hot rod and your confidence without a ton of money. And today I'm going to kind of take you through a little bit of a pickle I'm in as I was disassembling the car for taking the water pump off, deciding I'm going to replace that before I do the head swap, just for the extra insurance. I realized basically I was only halfway organized. As I was taking bolts off, I was putting each of the bolts into separate bags and labeling them well, but the last 5 bolts that came off the water pump are just strictly for the water pump itself. I had no clue where those went. So luckily, because of my halfway organized system, by process of elimination in one picture, I can show you the bolt pattern for a small block Ford water pump, as I realized it was hard to find one out on the interwebs. LMR has a great resource if you have a 1979 or newer small block Ford, 5 liter 302. But because this is a 78 car, mine's a little different. So let me show you that bolt pattern. Of course, as soon as I hit record, it started raining there. But anyway, if you've been following along, if you're not a first-time subscriber, then you know we mentioned the water pump in the last episode. This is Monday, Memorial Day. So first, let me pause and say, hopefully you've taken a minute out of your day at least to remember the fallen soldiers who gave so much for us, so that even in this quarantine life, work from home life, we still have great freedoms here in America. So I sure hope that you guys did that. But anyway, you know, I was going to paint the water pump, so I got that done on Saturday of this past weekend. There is something else over in my hoard over there that I don't know if I'm going to show you quite yet, that I picked up for the car, so kind of a secret surprise. But anyway, like I mentioned, what I had done a good job of is I had bags, like AC tensioner to water pump. So that's what these 2 bolts are up top. This is the AC compressor tensioner. Then I had power steering pump bracket at water pump. That would be these 2. And let me just for a second show you the length difference. So the AC tensioner has this little taper on it, and that looks to be about an inch. Power steering pump, much stubbier. So you kind of get a sense for that. So anyway, thankfully, and here comes the rain. Hold on. So thankfully, from you know, this long YouTube haul, and this is probably from way back when I was having thermostat issues, I was able to deduce from this one picture, based on the heater jackets, you know, kind of tell that's the alternator bracket. And so I could help start that way. So that helped me understand. Now I'm probably not gonna get these exactly right now, but I think it's like that's where it all started. I could obviously tell that guy is that guy. So we get that in here, and between these 2, so this guy goes here, and this longer one is accompanied by this collar, which goes right here. So with that, we have the 5 remaining water pump bolts, and so we know kind of what we're left with here. And then between these 2, you could just kind of easily tell, just on the engine block, kind of compare lengths. You know, one's significantly longer than the other. So let me go show you that on the engine block. So those final 2 we were talking about, the shorter of the 2 goes up here. You can get a sense, you kind of get a sense for that here. and then the longer one goes down here. So let me pull this back off and give you guys kind of an exploded view of where all the fasteners go. So here we are. We will try to do this in, I don't know, in order just to, I guess, keep our remaining 5 in. So, first off, the stubbies, power steering pump bracket. This is a driver's side. Lower radiator hose kind of tilts down on the driver's side, so if you're looking straight on at the motor, you're looking straight at the driver's side with the lower radiator hose input. Alternator bracket, the longest one with a collar, little spacer goes here. Next longest stud is here. And then these two, nope, just this one goes there. Air conditioning bracket tensioner are these two up here. And remember, they've got this split, I don't know if you can see it, kind of a notch in the end of the threads. So let me move the camera back just a little bit so you can get a little better shot of all the bolts pulled out. So there they are. The remaining 5 then are, like I just showed you on the engine block, longest one right here. It's got more meat to go through on the water pump itself. The next longest, and then 3 equal length ones right there. Now you might notice that some of these fasteners are goobered up. The only ones I've cleaned have been the final 5, we'll call it. Another way to distinguish the remaining 5, or I'm going to say these are the 5 I'm going to put on when I sink down the gasket right away. They don't have a threaded bore, so they're kind of easier to distinguish that way. So there you go. Anyway, we're going to get to installing the water pump. I got to touch up some paint. I'm taking it on and off so much. I hope to accomplish more today. Like, I want to paint my heads, clean my heads, paint my heads, and install my heads. But for the sake of just getting things done, and the simplicity of this episode, I'm going to probably just leave today's episode at the water pump install. So, hopefully you caught last Sunday's upload. If not, link in the upper left-hand corner of your screen and an info card to that. You can kind of see how I got to this point. But yeah, let's just get to installing the water pump. Real quick, I'm going to show you the process of what I did to restore the 5 remaining bolts for the water pump. I'm going to do this on these are the alternator bracket ones. So first things first, I'm just going to spray them with PB Blaster. If you have WD-40, that will work about the same. And then either start with a stiff brush or just go straight to the wire brush and go around the threads. Is kind of just the first step. Luckily these are probably just more dirty than anything. They don't look too bad corroded, but before we call that good and just leave it thinking the wire brush is enough, because I think these probably from the factory had a little bit of a thread sealer on them. Always seems to be one thread about in the middle of the pack that's kind of solid. I have this thread chaser that bought off Amazon, fairly cheap. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to pick one of yours up. But just, I don't quite tighten it down all the way like I would if I needed to fix a cross-threaded bolt, but just enough to where you engage the thread, and then I just kind of spin it around, and that helps clean out what remaining gunk is in there, and does a pretty good job, I think. So lastly, in the spirit of better safe than sorry, we're going to hit these with a little bit of brake clean, since PB Blaster is a pretty oily substance, and since we are going to be applying thread sealer on these as we reinstall, we probably just want to make sure that it's going to bond well to the threads. So we'll hit these all with a little bit of brake clean and should be good to go. I went ahead and slid a few of those 5 remaining bolts through already to help hold the gasket in place. You can see I've got RTV just slightly smeared on both sides of the gasket, so we're ready to slap it on the car. So on these first 5 at least, don't forget the thread sealer. It also looked like the alternator bolts probably needed as well. But yeah, we're just going to try to be as fast as possible getting the water pump on with our normal socket, and then we'll come back and take our time and torque them all down. So the AC pump, as well as, or the AC bracket, as well as the power steering pump bracket, those are not critical to seating the water pump to the timing cover. So we're going to torque these now all down to 15 foot-pounds. So there you have it. Water pump is installed. One thing some of you may have already noticed by now, when I was at O'Reilly's picking up the Ford blue paint, I picked up the old Ford blue paint, which I think is just meaning like, you know, more like the 60s era. I don't know if it shows up very well, but you can see this blue is a little different than the valve cover. I don't know if it's going to bother me too much. I want to leave the valve covers kind of as is, just in their natural state, all original. And I think the accessories are going to cover up enough of the heads that I'm going to paint here eventually. And the water pump, that I don't know that you're really going to be able to notice it, but worst case scenario, if it's that bad, I mean, the valve covers are about the last thing that goes on, so I can always paint those, repaint those later. But anyway, I'm going to start putting back together some of this stuff, not, you know, entirely everything, but just to help make sense out of all of the, you know. One thing that won't go on right now is the alternator, because, well, here is the alternator bracket from the old heads. So you want to mount it up there and it works there, but it is not quite long enough. The GT40P heads or the Ford Explorer must have had something a little bit different. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do there. In fact, maybe it makes more sense to mount it up to that hole. I got to figure out which hole, and then maybe just try my luck with just bolting it in one spot. I mean, that'll eventually, the alternator might sag, but I'm kind of hopeful that the other connection points, maybe it'll be rigid enough. So kind of have to just, not quite sure what I want to do there yet. But so there's that. Let me give you guys a budget update now on the car, having installed the water pump in this episode. So with my handy dandy cheat sheet, I will tell you, the last time we did a budget update, we were at $82.43 left of that original $4,000 all-in budget for Project Low Fairmont. At O'Reilly's online, that water pump cost me $39.32, and that brings our remaining budget now down to $43.11 left to spend on this car. You guys kind of can tell how much more I have to do on it, and you might be able to tell that we're going over budget probably the next time I give you a budget update. But one thing that did kind of, it's bad luck, I guess you'll say, over the weekend was I, on Saturday, was going to go to the scrapyard and dump off a bunch of the, you know, the old heads, the old master cylinder, the old brake parts. Hopefully get, you know, maybe $15 back to the budget. But wouldn't you know it, all the scrap yards, even on Saturday, were already closed for Memorial Day weekend. You know, most of them have like half-day hours, 8 to noon kind of day hours, but nonetheless, that's all right. We'll just we'll see what the scrap yard nets me when I get a chance to go there this week. And I've got about an hour and 45 minutes left out here in the garage, but I'm gonna kind of shut down filming and just work, and you'll just have to see what I got done else today on the head swap for Project Blue Fairmont when you tune in next week. So anyway, if you don't want to miss that, of course you'll want to be a subscriber, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Either way, if you really want to support the channel, I suggest you go down to the description below and there's a link to my Spreadshirt store where you can pick up one of these classy straight 6-band Pistons tees or my 30s, 60s, 198 slant 6 inspired t-shirt. So go take a look, maybe there's something there for you. That really helps generate revenue for this channel. Otherwise, comment, share, and oh hey, over here, these are some other videos. Why don't you go check out one of these two, and maybe you'll enjoy that too. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this episode. And until next time, peace out.